Have you ever begged God for an answer, only to be met with silence? Not for a day, not for a week, but for months, maybe even years. You pray, you wait, you search for signs in the middle of your pain, and heaven feels terrifyingly quiet. The hardest part isn't the suffering, it's wondering, did God stop listening? But here's something most people never realize. Throughout the Bible, some of the people God loved most experienced seasons of unbearable silence. Joseph waited, David waited, Job waited. Even Jesus experienced silence. So, what if God's silence isn't rejection? What if it's preparation? What if the silence you've been afraid of is actually where God does His deepest work? Today, we're uncovering 5 powerful reasons God seems silent during your darkest seasons, and why that silence may be changing you in ways you cannot yet see. Chapter 1: The Hidden Season: Why Growth Often Begins in Silence. One of the hardest truths to accept is this: God often does His deepest work in places nobody can see. Think about Joseph. Before he stood in a palace, he sat in a prison, forgotten, misunderstood, waiting. Imagine praying year after year while nothing changes, no explanation, no breakthrough, just silence. But what looked like abandonment was actually preparation, because God was building something in Joseph that couldn't be built through comfort. And maybe that's what is happening in your life right now. Maybe the silence isn't empty. Maybe roots are growing underneath the surface. The strongest trees don't survive storms because of what people see above the ground. They survive because of what was formed in secret. Scripture reminds us there is a season for everything. And perhaps this season isn't about losing. Perhaps it's about becoming. So don't mistake silence for rejection. Don't mistake waiting for absence. Because some of God's greatest transformations begin in hidden places. The darkness may feel endless, but seeds grow in darkness before they ever reach the light. Chapter 2: The Refiner's Fire. Sometimes God's silence feels like heat, not comfort, not answers, just pressure. Think about Job. He lost almost everything before hearing God's voice again. And maybe that's the painful truth. Silence doesn't always mean punishment. Sometimes it's refinement. Gold isn't destroyed by fire. It is purified. Maybe God isn't abandoning you. Maybe He is removing what cannot survive, where He is taking you next. The fire feels painful, but pain and preparation often look the same. You are not being broken, you are being shaped. Chapter 3: The Strategic Pause. Here's an uncomfortable question. What if God has already shown you the next step, but fear keeps asking for another sign? Sometimes silence isn't God's absence. Sometimes it's an invitation. Think about Peter. He stepped onto the water before understanding everything. Faith didn't begin with certainty. It began with movement. Maybe God is quiet because He is waiting for you to trust what you already know, to move, to forgive, to begin, to obey. Not every season needs a new answer. Sometimes it needs courage. Silence may not be stopping you. It may be asking, will you trust me enough to take the first step? Chapter 4: Surrender and the Call. Something changes when we stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, God, what are you trying to teach me? Because surrender isn't losing. Sometimes surrender is the beginning. The moment we release control, we finally make room for trust. Maybe the silence hasn't been keeping you from God. Maybe it has been leading you closer. So let me ask you, what if this season isn't meant to break you, but to redirect you? What if your calling is hidden inside the struggle you're trying to escape. If heaven feels quiet in your life right now, right, I'm still waiting. Because you are not walking through this season alone. And if these words speak to your heart, stay with us. There is still one final truth about silence that changes everything. Chapter 5. The Power of Transformation. Maybe this is the truth hidden inside all the silence. You are not the same person who first entered this season. The waiting changed you. The pain changed you. The silence changed you. Faith is not believing when answers are clear. Faith is trusting when heaven feels quiet. And one day, you may look back at this season and realize God was never absent. He was preparing you. Because silence doesn't always mean I have left you. Sometimes it means I am building something in you. Nothing was wasted. Not the tears, not the waiting, not the nights you thought no one heard your prayers. God was there, even in the quiet, especially in the quiet. So don't fear the silence anymore. Walk forward, trust deeper, keep believing, because your story is still unfolding. And perhaps the chapter you call silence will become the testimony you tell someday. Thank you for spending this time with Grace Giver. If this message found you in a difficult season, remember, you are not alone. We'll see you in the next journey.